Are you renting? Do you have tenants? In this video, we'll talk about exactly what you need to do to take advantage of the rent relief program. And we'll give away for free a document that you can use to sign to come to an agreement with either your landlord or your tenant.
You are now listening to
The AFL brand.
You don't get it, eh? For our directory, our sphere of influence is provide for them some assistance to executing on what the Prime Minister talked about this morning. And so Andrew Edwards is a very good friend of mine. We have a great strategic partnership with our firm and his law firm, the firm he works with. And so we do a lot of business together. Andrew Edwards is a partner there now at Davis & Co. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so Andrew, thanks for joining me, brother. How have you been?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. Well, let's talk about it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this rent assistance program?
I think it's attempt at a balancing act of some sort. I don't think either side would have perhaps gotten everything they would have wanted to be comfortable at the end of the day, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And just to recap, maybe you haven't seen it, maybe you don't know what we're entirely talking about, is the rent assistance program that was mentioned in Parliament today. Do we call that? Did he table it? I mean, that's a decision, eh?
No, the amended orders to reflect that are to come, but I think he just would have given a basic outline.
Okay. So here's what it says. It says 3 months rent relief for eligible tenants between April and June. 40% of rent postponed, no evictions or utility disconnections for impacted persons, and a 12-month period to pay back. Application required through landlord, available to citizens and legal residents in residential properties with rent under $2,000 a month. No arrears and lost income that have no arrears, obviously is what that means, and have lost income due to COVID-19. And so it's timely. Again, people are very, very concerned. A lot of people have been talking about what the ramifications or the implications of, the middle and lower class not being to work for so long and what that might mean from a crime perspective. And so I think this is a very timely initiative. But that then put landlords in a very funny position, eh? Andrew, what are your thoughts?
To some degree, but in a lot of instances, I think they're in a position where people generally are not paying. I think it puts it puts the ball back in now the tenant's court that you have to pay something, and so it's not sort of a free for all. So landlords, yes, we're not getting the full amount for the time being, but it's still sort of not a everything's scot-free kind of thing that I think a lot of tenants may have been hoping for.
Yeah, and the thought I have, if I am out of work entirely, how do you think I might be able to come up with the 60%?
Well, I know that social services is providing some rental assistance for those persons. True. And from what I saw, I think it's up to $1,800 over a certain period of time. And so hopefully that would help most of those who are most severely affected. Yeah,
certainly. Okay. Well, I consulted with Andrew earlier today. As soon as the PM got off, I knew a lot of our clients was going to need help in preparing this document and kind of communicating to their tenants how to get this process done. And so me and Andrew collaborated on this, what I'm calling a rental agreement, as it were, or an amended rental agreement, supplemental rental agreement that'll help landlords get their tenants to fill a form and come to an agreement on what works for them. So I wanted to kind of go through that, Andrew. And again, from a legal perspective, while I try to put this up on the screen, I wanted you to talk about what legal ramifications does a landlord have if the tenant is in arrears now and maybe they aren't eligible for this, and if they go into arrears not having paid, an agreement that they come to? How would a landlord address that?
Well, firstly, if you were eligible for eviction beforehand, this doesn't necessarily apply to you. So that's number one. So if you're eligible for eviction in March, there's not necessarily any relief for you in this.
Okay.
For those who enter into these agreements, though, and for some reason they're unable to meet their commitment, once you would have entered into this agreement, it kind of still locks you in for 3 months. And my view is that you would still be entitled to pay the entirety if we went to court, etc. But in the meantime, I don't think there is any sort of recourse for the landlord to evict or to disconnect utilities of any sort.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So can you see that?
I do now.
Okay. So let's go through this real quick, because again, what I want to be able to do here is provide for landlords a video that they could send directly to their tenants and show them kind of how to fill this out, and we'll do it very quickly because it's a very simple document. And what obviously from the tenant side, what they are agreeing to. So Andrew, why don't you help me out with this?
Well, just going through your thing. I mean, I think it's just what you prepared. What we discussed earlier today. This is pretty much a supplement to the agreement, which means it doesn't supersede the original agreement, but it's just something additional to the agreement, and it would govern the relationship for the next few months, and then we'd be back to the original agreement. All other terms of the initial agreement would apply, but for those terms that are affected by the terms in this agreement.
Right. Go ahead.
And I mean, I don't know if you wanted to walk through, and then I just perhaps comment as we go along.
Yeah, certainly. So again, what we've done here is tried to make this a document that if it came down to it, and hopefully it doesn't, that it's legally binding, and you could use to have clear terms between the tenant, the landlord, and if it comes to it, the court as well. So you have the landlord name and the tenant name. Obviously, the landlord will put their name there, tenant will put their name there. The property title. What is the title that's on the lease agreement that you and that tenant would have signed? Or in some cases, people don't have tenant agreements. What is the physical address of that property? Is that lot number 5, lot number 6, of what community it is?
Right, and it's just a description that's sufficient enough to identify that property. So you just wanted to make sure that all parties identify exactly what you're referring to, and if it becomes a contentious issue, then it's very clear as to what property you're referring to.
Correct. Then we have the current rental amount. What did you agree to? What was the rental amount? This speaks to the amount prior to the COVID, prior to lockdowns. What were they paying? What is their agreed rental amount? And so it then goes on to say, due to closure or reduced operation of my place of employment, I declare that I am unable to pay in full my current rental amount for a period of no more than 3 months. Let's talk about that 3 months and why we decided to put that specific wording in there, Andrew.
Right, as we discussed, the communication from the Prime Minister really only affects at this time April, May, and June, and so you're looking at just those 3 months. Yeah. And it can be a maximum of 3 months. It can be less. I mean, you may only need that assistance or that grace for the month of April, and you can come up with the full amount in May and June. If you're able to do so, I encourage you to do so, because it will lessen your burden down the road. Right. But it's no more than April, May, and June, expiring on the 1st of July.
Right. Okay. And so it then goes on to say, I, the tenant, I'm a Bahamian citizen. This is restricted to people who are of Bahamian citizenship.
Just to clarify, it's also anyone who's legally resident here.
I appreciate that. Yes.
So we may just need to amend slightly, but it's so technically you should only have your tenants as persons who are residing here legally in any event. And for example, if you have a place, someone who's here and got stuck here visiting, etc., and they're not legally resident here, then this won't apply to them, even though they're in your residential property.
And what should we adjust the wording to say? I'm a Bahamian citizen or have right to reside,
Yes, or legal resident.
Or legal resident.
Yes.
Okay. Then the second thing you need to confirm as a tenant is that my income is affected by COVID-19. How would you suggest, Andrew, that someone confirms that? What are some ways you can?
Most persons, would have letters where they've been temporarily laid off. They would have evidence through pay slips that I now, up to March, I was making X amount a week. Now I'm on reduced hours. I only make X amount. Those are things that really through either pay slips or letters, and preferably because of the nature of what's going on, really should be by something confirmed by your employer.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Or former employer.
Yeah.
As the case may be.
Right.
Or if you're self-employed, let's say you're a hair braider or a taxi driver or a bus driver, etc., you should be able to provide evidence of the same through your franchise agreement, something of that sort, that shows that, and the fact that I think it's a given that those persons in those areas have been affected.
Certainly. Good. So you want to provide some additional documentation. It then goes on to say, again, the tenant further confirm that I will pay blank %. We'll explain this in a minute. Of the agreed rental amount through agreed prescribed. Maybe we change that to prescribed.
That's fine.
Methods on payment date noted above. Percentage to be no less than 60%. Go ahead and let's talk about that for a minute then.
Right, as I would have mentioned, you can, the way it's now supposed to work, that you can pay no less than 60%. So you have to pay a minimum of 60% of the rental amount. You can pay 70%, you can pay 70%, you can pay 80%, you can pay 90%. If you can afford it, you can pay 100%, but it can be no less than 60%. If you're looking for anything less than 60%, then this sort of reprieve for the months of April, May, and June will not apply to you. And so if you and the landlord agree that you're only going to pay 50% and whatever, then the other particulars don't apply to you, and that's a contract or an agreement between you and the landlord. And
so in the event, Andrew, that the landlord says, listen, I do understand and you have been a good tenant, I'm willing to make additional concessions for you, would you suggest that the landlord then does two agreements, one agreement speaking to this, and then maybe a separate agreement to the additional percentage? What are your thoughts?
No, I would just do one agreement, which actually speaks to the terms between the two of them. In this case, what we're having is something that's being done by virtue of the state, and so that you can do, once you agree to no less than 60%, then the tenant is entitled to the rights, and that's an entitlement where they can go, pay that lesser amount and not be evicted. If they're going to pay even less than that, that's between you and the tenant, and those terms are something that are mutually agreed between you two as any other contract.
Okay. It then goes on to say, and so again, let's just for real clarity here, if your rental amount if your monthly payment is $1,000, and you calculate what is the least you can pay is $600. And so for clarity between you and your tenant, you want to have them or you put in April payment, you expect $600, May payment $600, and June payment $600. And again, that avoids any confusion about what is the expected payment for the coming months, right? So then we go into the other portion. It says, I, again, the tenant, agree to repay a cumulative deferred total in monthly payments, number of payments not exceeding 12, totaling blank. So Okay, let's break this down and or Andrew, why don't you take that and explain what that means?
I think it's just whatever has been foregone. So in your example of 1,000, and it's now $600 for the months of April, May, and June. We have $1,200 shortfall, and you may agree to pay $100 a month additional from July 1st to the 1st of June the following year. And that might be the way it's done. This is, I think, what Matt did here was to try to make it very simple and divide it up. But if the person decides for some reason, you know what, I went back to work, I got a nice little bonus, and I can pay the $1,200 one time, then they're also able to do that.
Right.
But I think what was done here was to make it simple and to probably outline it the way that most persons would probably approach it, as in they chip away at it piece.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and so it would then read, assuming that scenario that we were painting here, I, the tenant, agree to pay a cumulative deferred total in 12 monthly payments of payments not exceeding payments totaling $100 per installment, with payments due in conjunction with my August rent payment. Is that the proper wording? Because when you pay for August, would that be your first?
No, July is when it would actually apply.
July.
So,
let me go ahead and correct that.
So it'll be, and so it'll be not in conjunction, but commencing with my July payment.
Commencing with?
Yes. And it doesn't have to necessarily commence with then. I mean, your position can be, and I think depending on the actual wording, because we haven't seen the wording provided by the government as yet, but my understanding, just on my cursory, I guess, listening to what was said this morning, is that any time over that 12-month period, it just needs to be paid in full.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Understood. Okay.
But it's not to be taken advantage of. So if I'm a landlord, I'm not going to agree for someone who's going to pay me the full 100% lump sum in June of 2021.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it goes on to say,
I will assure you, you will never see it.
Exactly. It goes on to say, I further note that an inability to meet the terms noted above may result in my eviction. And let me put I here as well. I will make my best attempts to comply with this agreement.
Yes, and then maybe just want to go a little further and said that that you agree under all circumstances to be responsible for the difference between the rent paid for April, May, and June, and the rent, the current rental amount, and the current rental amount.
Any rental arrears. Help me finish the sentence. I further agree under all circumstances to pay any rental arrears.
Or to pay the difference between rent agreed for April, May, and June, and the full rent and the full rental amount.
Should we put a timeline in there? It's kind of ambiguous the way it's worded.
Well, right now it's going to be 12 months for the time being, but I would leave it because I think that after the Prime Minister would provide the actual written document outlining how it's going to work, there's going to be maybe some tweaking of this document, and the devil is always in the detail.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and so we'll put some more work into this, but again, you have the body of what this document it will share for public consumption to use. I was playing around with this because obviously then this presents the next issue is how do I now get this executed without social contact? And so I was playing around with this, and there are two apps that you would want to download that your tenant can fill, or you can produce this for your landlord, that can be filled without physical contact. Now, Andrew, that brings up another point, and let me just share the names of these two apps: Adobe Fill and Sign. They're both on iOS and Android. And then the next is DocuSign, and both of those are free apps. So that brings up the question, Andrew, how legally binding is a digital signature?
Electronic signatures, they are acceptable here.
Okay. Okay. Good.
And in any event, I mean, even if the person was to take on their phone, sign it, send it back, whatever, that's good and well.
Right. And so that would work just fine, eh?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And any additional protection? You would have that phone communication to be able to.
And even with less sophisticated tenants, I mean, even if you're leaving them outside the door, they're collecting them, taking a photo, and sending it back to you. That would suffice.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So Andrew, as it relates to the tenant side, as it relates to the landlord side, is there any additional information on how to use this rent assistance program to help either party there?
No, I think you've covered it quite well, Matt. And I think it's a good start. Obviously, we're going to wait for the details to come out and tweak it as you go along.
Yeah. But
it's a good tool to start off with, and it is required, if you listen today, that you have to have an agreement in place for this.
Right.
It's not just automatic. You want to do it. No, both sides. Well, not both sides, but it has to be signed and agreed by both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Andrew, I wanted to make this short, and I think we accomplished just that. And so I appreciate you taking the time to do this, to jump on a call as quick as early as today. And hopefully this helps some people.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate it, brother.